The conversation in regards to the same. Also, we pick on what it is that my team has prepared in terms of news. I have the papers with me. It's going to be different. You know, sometimes ukikuwa mgeni unaambiwa, you just have to dance to the tune. We're not saying that we are short of the back screen as we always do it, but yes, it's going to be different. We have the hard copies of the Standard newspaper and the Daily Nation. I also have a soft copy of the People Daily. And I think it's incumbent upon me to now enlighten you on what the papers detail. Later on, we'll expound on understanding some more of the details alongside my guests this morning. And the biggest story on the Standard newspaper, Raila cost offensive is really important that we discuss this, the charm offensive and so much that is likely to play out in regards to the politics of the coast. The coastal region aligning itself for the very first time. They say it is important that we shun the conversation of Pwani Si Kenya. We join Kenyans, we join together as a people, and then we decide on what it is that we're going to bargain for our people. And therefore, as Right Honorable Raila Odinga tours the coast, it is important that we note what it is that he seeks to attain from that. Not necessarily even tour, but generally the conversations that he's been holding with the leadership of the coast and the offensive to erode Ruto's gains. We'll get to know this as we discuss the politics of, that is, Pwani, and therefore in a strategy to undo inroads made by the Deputy President who won over a number of members of Parliament, the ODM leader increases political forays as local politicians weigh in or realignments options ahead of 2022 general election. We'll be holding this conversation today with a member of Parliament of Mvita, that is, I don't know why I always find it hard to say B and V. Probably influence of my mother tongue. And yes, we'll be having him join us. He seeks the gubernatorial position of Mombasa County. Whether he plays or whether he is lucky enough, then we'll definitely get to have answers of the same as he tells us what plans they have, one, for ODM, Right Honorable Raila Odinga, or of course what it is that he has for himself, and importantly, what the coast region has in store. But as I have said, going down, you can also tell that it's 500 million for Uhuru Raila parties. You need to understand that with the Standard newspaper, sometimes you have a difference on the virtual paper, that is of course the soft copy and also the hard copy. On the soft copy, you can tell it's 500 million for Uhuru Raila parties. Also the conversation that is on in regards to succession politics, and therefore make sure that you keep it right here as we extensively look into this. Down a bit, Uhuru Ruto parties clash in Kiambaa. It is not all rosy, it is not all beautiful. It is a two-horse race, as they would term it. This between UDA or UDA and Jubilee Party. The political rivalry between Jubilee and UDA played out, that is yesterday, in Kiambaa constituency ahead of Thursday's by-election in what is seen as a dress rehearsal for the 2022 general elections. The story captured on page 4 and 5, that is of the Standard newspaper. We'll be having a conversation on this alongside the guests that we'll be having this morning. They are all leaders, and therefore it is important for us to get their view. As they would rightfully say, at some point in time, it is the leadership that has hugely been blamed for instigating such kind of intolerance, and therefore there is a clarion call for them to be keen in ensuring that they do not influence
Speaking in Huruma, where he attended a church.
As of course the Ministry of Interior would say, so much has been put on board to make sure that we have so much sobriety when it comes to the general election 2022. Big Shots Eye Prize, with or without BBI, that is also a political story captured on page 6 of the Standard newspaper. That's in regards to the conversation on whether the BBI sails through or not, and therefore very many people are out here keen to understand whether it will come in and change the system of leadership as of course projected, whether a majority of individuals, that is at the level of constituencies, would be able to have their constituencies also split somehow, and whether the numbers of constituencies will be increased. Remember, IEBC maintained that this is not possible, especially looking at the fact that we are almost headed for an election, and therefore we'll be having this conversation. But still, the leaders are aligning themselves. Those ones who are second-term governors are also trying to just plan their cards right to see to it that they are able to make sure that they are well set. And on the next page, you will need digital registration to seek treatment through NHIF. I hope that you have beat the deadline. That was yesterday, as of course there was that registration, biometric registration across the country and the different parts of NHIF, that is the different offices, to make sure that every Kenyan is able to access NHIF by making sure that their biometrics are captured. And so it's a conversation that is really, really important, even as the bill is out. And I mean, we're still having conversations as to whether it should be mandatory for every Kenyan to pay the fee of NHIF. We all know how it comes in handy to make sure that we are able to be catered for. We go back to the front page. And still on matters politics, Mwangi, that is Boniface Mwangi, renowned civil or activist, human rights activist, says that we know the Kenya we want, and we all understand how hugely he's been involved in the politics of the day, and the push for general stuff that it would be of good to the common mwananchi. A story captured on page 10 and 11. It's an extensive story of just so much in terms of democracy, in terms of the fight for the same and liberation, and so much more in the country. Those are the key political stories that we have this morning. Right here, queries as Uhuru and Raila parties get 519 million. A story captured on page 12, as you have seen right there. And also Kenya to pay China 35 billion. In what? We get details of the same as we continue, as captured on page 26. That is on the business page. And going into the larger African continent, Zuma, SA Chaos spreads a story captured on page 28. We all know that, he decided to proceed, and of course, started somehow, that is last week, started his jail time officially, 15 months, in regards to the conversation of contempt of court as declared by the courts. He suffers, or he faces, lots of charges, matters corruption, of course, that were conducted during his reign, and therefore the conversation in South Africa is on. This has raised emotive aspects, supporters of Zuma, those ones who do not support him, and also the conversation of making sure that there is sanity in the country. So we delve deep into the conversation of this later on, as chaos are spreading, that is in South Africa. That is on the front page of the Standard newspaper. Briefly, we pick what has been captured on the Daily Nation. There's always not much, because there's not much of activity over the weekend on the papers Monday mornings, and therefore winners and losers in Yatani's new tax measures. We'll be discussing this also alongside the leadership that I'll be having this morning. It is a tight moment for Wanjiku. The cost of living is extremely overboard, and Kenyans are grappling to survive. As they would say, a majority of Kenyans are surviving on less than $1 a day, which is quite wanting. And Kenyans are looking at members of parliament and the leadership as the people who've not been keen to make sure that they are cushioned or they're taken care of at this point where it's difficult and even worse, of unprecedented times of COVID-19. Secrets of Jubilee ODM power sharing deal. That is a story captured on page 4. It's a conversation that has been covering the political scene for quite a while now. And as we talk succession politics and the state of the nation, we definitely do not fail to discuss that. Tribal clashes. Military operation kicks off after 20 people are killed in Marsabit clashes. At least 5 deaths were recorded, that is last week, as the inter-ethnic fighting spilled over into Marsabit town. A story captured on page 8, quite unfortunate, 18, of the Daily Nation, as of course the Ministry for Interior is also taking up on the matter. We are here, that is in Mombasa County, and therefore, like I said, we do not fail to discuss the politics of Mombasa County. And as it is different, the digital or the soft copies are a bit different from the hard copies. The soft copy of the Daily Nation speaks of the secrets of ODM. We're looking at that. Is that the Daily Nation or the Standard newspaper? But then again, if you look at the Daily Nation here, Shebal seeks Joho's backing for 2022 race. We all understand that at some point he defected to Jubilee, and now he's back in ODM in a quest to make sure that he is the governor of Mombasa County, as Joho would be exiting the stage as stipulated by the Constitution. He finishes his second term, and therefore, as we are headed to the general election, like we have said, we have about 20-something governors that are seeking to realign themselves just to get to know where they head next. As senators also plan themselves, as members of parliament plan themselves to make sure that they get themselves into the gubernatorial position. And this is the Daily Nation endorsement just a day after officially tendering his resignation from Jubilee. Mombasa businessman, that is Suleiman Shebal, met Governor Hassan Ali Joho in his private residence for dinner, where only a select people attended to discuss the political strategy of next year's polls. Like I said, we'll be having the Member of Parliament of Mbita, Abdul Swamad, who equally is interested with the gubernatorial position of Mombasa, and therefore we engage him on his view on the same. We also acknowledge the fact that he sits in ODM, and therefore it will be a battle between themselves right within ODM. Maybe the nominations then will dictate who will carry the day and who will represent ODM in the gubernatorial position. The Coast region has been considered as, of course, a stronghold of ODM. We do not know whether such is the case or such, still sticks to that or not. We'll be getting details of that as we continue, and also as we engage the senator of Mombasa County, who in most cases probably would want to assume would probably be interested on getting to the gubernatorial position as well. Secondary schools face congestion crisis as Form 1's report. That, of course, is a story that, is in regards to matters education, and secondary school principals have less than about a month to make sure that they put up extra classes to also accommodate the Form 1 students who will be joining after that conversation and after, of course, having their release of their examinations. And as the CS for Matters Education, Professor George Magoha, would say, then they join in Form 1 in August the 2nd. It's really important that we have this conversation. Matters Football, so much has played out. That long-awaited game, a majority of people stayed up at night to make sure that they would experience this historic moment in regards to Matters Football. Joy at last, as they would call it. Messi Argentina Trophy ends in Brazil. That's going to be an interesting conversation. I'm sure it hits, the headlines across the better part of the night and coming into today. And congratulations to the winning team. Messi pays debt to Argentina, as has been captured on page 40 of the Standard newspaper. And briefly, I hope we are able to project this on screen. We also have the People Daily. Recovering Pope leads prayers from Rome Hospital. We all know that he was undergoing surgery and therefore he is recuperating well. A story captured on page 12 of the People Daily. We'll be updating you more on this. And no trace as hunt for Kangogo continues in week 2, or matches into week 2. We all know they call her the killer cop. It's been quite a hectic week. That is last week coming into the weekend, as of course conversations have been on as to crimes of passions and so much, murder cases that have been reported in the country. And therefore, as the search is on, detectives are upbeat to make sure that they're able to get answers to this. We'll be here to make sure that you are as well updated. As you can see on the screen right there is a story expounded on page 2 of the People Daily. And also this on the Pope is also a story captured on page 2 of the People Daily. As to Matters Politics, nominations test for the Big Four. And there you go. We also have the face of Abdul Swamad right there, Mvita Member of Parliament, who will be joining us this morning as we discuss the politics of the coast, the politics of Big Four agenda, politics of succession, and politics of NASA and mergers, and also, these alliances that are likely to crop up. As you can see, the faces of the key NASA principals also captured there, the Deputy President William Ruto, and as it would say, the allies' headache. It is quite, a tongue twister. It is quite tough for these leaders. It's a delicate balancing act as Deputy President William Ruto and opposition chiefs Raila, Kalonzo and Mudavadi seek to reward ardent supporters and also ensure that democracy prevails in their respective parties as nominations for key positions beckon ahead of next year's general elections. A story captured on page 6, and we'll be looking at that as we continue. But remember that bill that was fronted by Honorable Aden Duale, a story captured on page 5, and this is it. Sending nudes may soon note, may soon land you in jail for about 25 years. Bill sponsored by Garissa Township Member of Parliament Aden Duale also sets a fine of about 25 million for the offense. We all know what triggered the conversation of this bill. It sails through, ascended to law, then you know what it is that you're likely to go through in the event that you flout the same. And therefore, it's a conversation that is worth having, and we'll also be giving you details and nitty-gritty details of the same to make sure that you do not find yourself in trouble. As they would say, forwarding lewd SMS could attract about 25 years in jail, and Duale Bill seeks to tighten the law to make sure that nudes are categorized in the group of blocked content. I think that's more like it on the papers.